Okay, so we're holding Tehilim, Psalms, Perek Kuf Yutet, chapter 119. This is the longest chapter, and it's divided by the Aleph Bet. So tonight we're going to be doing the letters Zayin, Chet, and Tet. I began to explain that this chapter is focused on the Torah, on the importance of the Torah being something central in a Jew's life. Because it's so central, it's so important, it's after all the guide by which we live our lives. We can't be without it. Imagine without a roadmap, how are you going to get around? How are you going to reach your final destination? But people forget. People are distracted and they don't realize the importance of the centrality of Torah in a Jew's life. So David HaMelech pretty much dedicates this chapter not only to remind us of that, but also to keep in mind that there will be many, many struggles for a Jew to continuously learn Torah, to observe the Torah, because there will be many, many things that will try to interfere, disrupt him. And all of that, of course, has to do with the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, whose job is that you should not accomplish whatever your mission is. Now, even though every one of us has a unique mission, the general mission of the entire Jewish people, what we all have in common, is the Torah. The Torah is what binds us together. So no one can ever say, this does not apply to me. This only applies to the big rabbis. It is for them to learn Torah. That's not so. So what we're going to see tonight is, instead of the typical interruptions or things that distract the Jew from Torah, excuses. A lot of times people come up with excuses of why they can't learn Torah, or why they can't observe mitzvot, because of challenges, because of difficulties. They forget that the difficulties are there as a test, as a challenge. It's not that Hashem allowed this difficulty to prevent you from observing a mitzvah. Hanukkah is coming up. The Greeks decreed against the Jews not to observe certain mitzvot. They're trying to do that today in Europe too. Oh, no more circumcision. You have to ask permission from that little baby. You can't just do that to him. That's so cruel. And same thing with shechitah, with slaughter of animals. Decrees. So what is the Jew supposed to do? Just say, well, I have to accept it. That's life. You can't fight City Hall. See what I mean? Similar situations, whereas in the past, perhaps we were in physical danger, but today still, they want to prevent us from observing the mitzvot. Now, what do you think it is? It's just that somebody got up in the morning, he didn't have anything better to do. He was bored and said, let's make a decree, right, against the Jews. What was wrong till now? You had circumcision for all these years. Why did they get up one morning? So we forget sometimes that this is a test from above, a challenge. Are we going to protest? Are we going to do something about it, or just accept it and say we have no choice? So in this chapter, a great deal of this chapter talks about all kinds of distractions, things that attempt to interfere with us, whether it's enemies of all kinds, or whether it's all kinds of struggles. But it also excuses that we come up on our own from the Yetzer Hara. I have a whole lecture about excuses and rationalizations and justifications of why one would not want to do a mitzvah or embrace the Torah mitzvah. So I'm going to start just with a brief story that will give you an example of some of what he's going to say. Eliyahu Navi, you heard about him, right? Eliyahu, the prophet, once met up with a fisherman. He didn't tell who he was. And he sees that the fisherman is busy fishing. That's what he's doing. And he asks him, how is life, how are things? He said, everything's fine, thank God. I have a livelihood from the fishing. And he says, what about Torah? Do you learn Torah? Do you devote some of the time of the day to the Torah? He says, sir, I'm sorry, but God did not give me the brains for Torah. He says, really? Oh, that's your excuse. Tell me, how do you catch fish? Oh, he says, you want to know? I do it from scratch. I plant flax. And once I harvest the flax, I make strong nets. You know, from flax you can make really strong nets. And I use those nets to catch the fish. So that's interesting, Eliyahu Navi says. You mean to say God gave you the brains for that, but not for Torah? It's just an excuse. You don't need that much brains for Torah. Obviously Torah, there's different levels. There's even deep Torah, like Kabbalah. And obviously, it's not meant for everyone to be proficient in Torah, because obviously God knows we need people who will devote much of their time to be plumbers, architects, lawyers, obviously. So we need rabbis, we need teachers too. But you're not being asked to be proficient, to be an expert here. You're being asked to devote some time. Because otherwise, without even a few minutes of Torah during the day, you will run into many problems. Problem number one, you won't have the strength to fight your Yetzer Hara, your evil inclination. When one learns Torah, he's reminded. He's reminded of who he is, what he's here for, what is life all about, that it has a meaning and purpose. And he's reminded of the fact that he's responsible. He's not just another animal. He's responsible. He's the crown of creation. And there's a lot expected of him in his 70, 80 years over here. A lot. Not everything. They don't expect you to be the wealthiest man in the world. If it's not in your mazal written that you're going to be very, very wealthy, you're not going to be, no matter how hard you try. That's mazal. Mazal is not up to us. You do have free will. You're not an animal that only functions by instinct. And that free will, hopefully, will enable you to be a righteous man, a good name. This is what you need to earn for yourself. A good name, a good reputation. Observe the Torah mitzvot to do your best abilities. So if you don't learn Torah, even a few minutes, how are you going to remember this? How are you going to fight the Yetzer Hara who tries to cool you off? And how are you going to know what to do? Shabbat is not easy. There's a lot of details, a lot of halachot. So we need the Torah for direction. We need Torah also for encouragement. And that's what David HaMelech is going to talk about briefly in this chapter too. How he was encouraged when he learned Torah. How it reminded him. That's why these pesukim, these verses are brief, but I call them snippets. Small snippets of reminders that David HaMelech would say to remind himself of what he went through, and of course, so that we should avail ourselves from these snippets that are very, very useful in our life too. So, from the story of Eliyahu Navi, we learn something very, very important. Anybody that says he has no time whatsoever or no brains whatsoever for Torah, it's an excuse. A few minutes, we all have a few minutes. The problem is that a lot of people prefer to use those few free minutes on reading the sports section of the LA Times, or seeing the fake news, or entertaining themselves with something which is not that significant in their life. So they claim they have no time left. But what did you use that time for? So when we learn Torah, and Tehilim is very interesting because Tehilim consists of not just prayers and praises, but also this is Torah because it gives us a certain sense of direction. David HaMelech is telling this to future generation. Take it from me, I was the king. I was very busy. You're not as busy as I was. And you did not even go through half of what I went through. The struggles, the enemies that I had. You can derive a lot of encouragement from David HaMelech. This is why he put together this book. Partially to encourage those who go through similar experiences not to give up. Regardless of how hard it is. Remember, it's all a test. It's a challenge. God will never demand of you something which is beyond your means. Something which is too difficult, you're not going to be demanded to do that. Whatever you're being put through, you can handle it. And hopefully, with direction, you will be successful. So we're holding Ot Zayin. If you want to follow, beginning with verse Memtet, 49. Zechor davar le'avdecha al asher yichaltani. So loosely translated, we can say, remember the word that you promised me, to your servant, by which you gave me hope. So what is he saying here? The fact that I remember what you promised, whether it was what Hashem promised indirectly, whether it was the words of the prophets, what they promised us, this gave us tremendous hope. Imagine Jews going through persecution years ago. Years ago, it was very, very difficult. They turned to the words of the prophets and they would derive hope from it. This is what would give them hope, that one day, and it could be any moment, they're going to leave this galut, they're going to leave this exile and go back to Israel. If you've been living 200 years ago, imagine whether in Isfahan or in some other city in Europe where there was really a lot of persecution, and you would say, when is this going to end? I don't see anything in sight. Nobody can say that today. Over 7 million Jews in Israel. What's that? They just decided to come now? These are the prophecies fulfilling themselves. This gives us hope. He's supposed to, at least. But people are not paying attention. They're asleep. So David HaMelech says, this gave me hope. The words and your promise gave me hope. Zod nechamati, verse Nun 50. Zod nechamati be'oni ki imratecha chiyatni. This is my comfort in my affliction. He went through a lot of affliction. For your word has given me life. So the words of the Torah, as we said earlier, give encouragement. They give life. They remind us of that which we forget sometimes. For example, people sometimes are insulted by others. They get hurt. They have a financial loss. They can easily give up hope. They may even try to run away and do all kinds of terrible things. Without Torah, that's what may happen. With Torah, you're going to say, wait a minute, this is a kapara. If anything, maybe I deserve this. This is a tremendous atonement. Thank you, Hashem, for it. Obviously, we don't want atonements like that. We don't want to go through affliction or suffering. But this is what David HaMelech says. If you are going through it already, you don't have a choice, let's say. Therefore, Zot Nehamati. This is my consolation. This is my comfort. Your word has given me life. Next verse, Nun Aleph. Here's another example of a situation that he faced from time to time, where people wanted to discourage him, cool him off by making fun of him. Even though their intent was not necessarily to cool him off, but that is ultimately what would happen if somebody did not have hope and did not have trust in God. Zedim hinitzuni ad me'od mitoratecha lo natiti. Though the wicked, Zedim are wicked, evildoers, they ridiculed me severely. I have not strayed from your Torah. Yeah, it could easily happen to the ones who are weak. There are some people who are very weak in emunah, weak in nature. They don't have the strength to resist the social pressures. They're the ones that fall fast. Especially if there's a storm. What kind of a storm? A spiritual storm, like a Holocaust. After Holocaust, where a lot of people saw their own family butchered, they just snapped. When I say snapped, I don't only mean psychologically. A lot of people lost it. It created tremendous shock in their life, and they just lost it. Similar to soldiers who saw their buddies being killed next to them. They saw a bomb falling not too far from them. It puts them through shock. But these people are also very, very depressed, disappointed. Where was God? How did He allow this to happen? You have a very powerful storm. A hurricane is a powerful storm, right? This is a spiritual hurricane because of what happened. A lot of them just let go of their Judaism. Their roots were shallow at home. They were never strong to begin with. So all you needed was a big wind, and they just fell. They couldn't resist. They couldn't somehow gather the strength to continue their life. Because how could this happen? They had no answers. They didn't learn. They were ignorant. Their roots were not strong. They couldn't take it anymore. We're not going to blame anyone, of course. We don't know what we would do if we were in their shoes. So we're not blaming. We're just explaining that the stronger the roots are, the more learned one is, the more one's faith is pure, the better the chances, it's not a guarantee, but the better the chances that he will be able to weather the storm. So here he says, look, I had to deal with mockers, scorners, evil people, wicked people who ridiculed me. And a lot of people, because of the ridicule, they don't do teshuvah. They don't want to stand out. They don't want to wear a kippah. Oh, looks funny. Did somebody die in the family that you're wearing a head cover? You know, they usually see head covers at funerals. So when they see somebody coming for the first time to work one day, covering his head because he's doing teshuvah, what happened? You think something happened? You know what happened? I became smarter. That's what happened. I realized that this is very good. This is very special. It reminds me that He is the boss. We need reminders. So he says, he faced these people who tried to cool him off, who tried to dissuade him from doing what he was doing, making fun of him. So that was the type of challenge that he had from time to time. But he didn't fall for it. I didn't let go of your Torah just because of that. I continued. Is he only speaking to himself? No, he's speaking to us. You see, this is why this is how I reacted. Pasuk Nun Bet 52. Zacharti mishpatecha me'olam Adonai ve'etnecham. When I remember your judgments of old, Hashem, I take comfort. Mishpatecha here means judgment or punishment. When I see what you've done elsewhere to the wicked, and what other people have gone through in the past, me'olam, ve'etnecham, this also gives me comfort. I realize that yesh din ve'yesh dayan. I realize, hey, if I look through history, there was judgment. It's not like, why are these evildoers getting away with it? Yes, if you look at only one segment of the movie, you'll be puzzled. But sir, you should have been here at the beginning of the movie, or at least for the entire movie, from the beginning. You would have a better understanding, but nobody lives that long to understand what's going on in the world, because we were not here at the beginning of the movie. It's a long movie, over 5,000 years. We come at the end, oh, it's not fair. Sir, where were you? It's like Hashem telling Eov. Eov had certain issues with what Hashem was doing in his world. Eov, did you see my blueprint for the creation? That you want to figure out why things are the way they are? I never shared my blueprint with you. You want to see the blueprint? You first have to go upstairs. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go upstairs before my time. Yeah, when people go upstairs, then they understand a little bit better. They have more clarity. So David HaMelech says here, regardless of the situation, I know, sheyesh din v'yesh dayan, even though things are tough, and it appears that the evildoers are getting away with it. No, I know from the past. I see mishpatecha me'olam. I read history. I see that there was judgment on the wicked. Therefore, that gives me nechama, that gives me some comfort in understanding that you're still around. Plus, it gives me comfort that I realize that everything is for the good. Everything serves a purpose. Nothing happens in a random way. Pasuk Nun Gimel 53. Zil'afa hazatni v'resha'im uzve toratecha. This is a very interesting verse. First of all, the first word is very unusual. You won't find it. Zil'afa, trembling. I think that's the best translation. Trembling seized me because of the wicked, those who forsake your Torah. So you can say, simply stated, that David HaMelech feels bad. He's very sad. He says, how could people be so bad? How could people do the wrong thing? It bothers me so much to see them doing what they're doing. I tremble. But he wouldn't use the word tremble if he was just bothered. You know why he says here trembling? He says, if the tzaddikim, if righteous people suffered for minor things relatively, can you imagine what's going to happen to the Rashahim, to the wicked? Just because you don't see anything happening to them doesn't mean anything. On the contrary, you should learn from the fact that tzaddikim are going through difficulties. If they have to pay for what they did, and usually minor things, can you imagine what the wicked ones are going to have to pay? Just because you don't see it in your lifetime doesn't mean they're not going to be having to pay. There's going to be payday one day. If not here, then upstairs. So Zila'afa hazatni, he says, I tremble from the Resha'im Osvei Torateh, those who are wicked, who have left the ways of the Torah. If tzaddikim have to pay for their minor sins, can you imagine what's going to happen to them? Verse Nun Dalet 54. Zemirot hayu li chukecha bevet megurai. If you have it, verse 54, Nun Dalet. Your statutes have been my songs in the house of my wanderings. Well, my house of my wanderings, because he had to wander from time to time, from place to place. They went after him, they looked for him, they wanted to kill him. Your mitzvot, your chukim, your statutes were for me like songs. They gave him that encouragement that he needed. They gave him hope. Zemirot, songs, music, very uplifting. If you're ever in a bad mood, don't listen to Persian music, because that's depressing. Okay? Listen to some good Latin music, Jewish music. Yes, music is very, very good to the soul, really. It can uplift you, it can depress you, it can really control your mood. So even though he's talking here about chukecha, your statutes, to him it was like zemirot, because he began to understand things a little bit better with time. The more he learned, he says, wow, this makes so much sense to me. It's like a song. What is a song? It's a composition. Everything is harmony. When there's harmony, when everything is in tune, then it's beautiful. So that's why he's saying, as he was wondering, he had Torah. You know that a lot of Jews, thank God, had retained a lot of their learning by heart. So when they were stuck in jail or somewhere where there were no books, they were still able to continue to learn Torah. From memory. Sometimes entire Gemarot, entire Mishnayot, what a beautiful thing. And this gave them hope. Imagine not having anything, not being able to study for somebody who was used to study, because they remembered it by heart. Like Zemirot Hayuli, they were like to me like a song that I can continuously sing and repeat. And this helped him when he was wandering from place to place. Next verse, Nun Hey. Zacharti balayla shimcha Adonai v'ashmena toratecha. 55. Here he talks about nighttime. You would think you would go to sleep at night. Well, not David HaMelech, we're told, did not sleep a lot. Basically, he's saying like this. At night I remembered your name, Hashem, and I kept your Torah. But what's the difference between remembering your name and keeping your Torah? Well, remembering your name is prayer. David HaMelech turned to Hashem in prayer during the nighttime. He said Tehilim. And he also used part of the night for the Torah, the Shmirat Toratecha. Why the night? What's so special about the night? Maimonides, the Rambam, says that the best time for him to write his books was at night, when he was not busy. He was a doctor. He was very, very busy during the day. At night he had the time to be able to think, to be able to write, to be able to look into that which was difficult to perhaps comprehend, and he could not concentrate very well during the day. Now he could. That was the nighttime. Now, obviously, most people are very, very tired at night. And so was David HaMelech. I'm sure he was very, very tired. But he forced himself to get up. And it's a known thing that David HaMelech got up very early. He didn't sleep a lot. It's a known thing about David HaMelech. He knew in advance that his life was very limited. He only had so much time to live. Could you imagine if you see an hourglass? You know what an hourglass is? The one that's full of sand? Right in front of you. And this is the amount of time that you have left to live. I don't think you would be very calm. You would be worried it's almost about to finish. We don't see the hourglass in front of us, so we think we're going to live to 200. The rabbis tell us once you reach 50, and especially 60, look at the fact that you're about to return your soul to its maker. Life is almost over. The average lifespan is somewhere today in the late 70s, I think, in this country. So how much time do you have? 18 years, 20? It goes by very quickly. David HaMelech says, I know this better than anybody else, because I know how long I will live. He just didn't know which day he will go, but he knew. It's very limited. Got to maximize my time, day and night. So it's not only people forget it, they think David HaMelech was so in love with the Torah. He was in love with the Torah, of course. He was a very, very pure soul. And obviously he was inclined to this, he understood this, and he understood the value of it. But he also realized the limitation of time constraints. And here he has a lot to accomplish. He was a judge, he was a king, he was a father, and a husband. I mean, he had all those roles too. So he prays to Hashem in the beginning of the night. And then he learns Torah as well. Alright, next pasuk. Nun Vav 56. Zot hayta li ki fikudecha natzarti. All this came to me because I kept your precepts. So, what does it mean, all this came to me? If you recall, he was concerned about several things. One of them was about the Malchut, the reign, being king, that his descendants should be king. He was concerned that that may not happen. So, he says, I was able to retain all of that. I was able to acquire all of that only because Kipikudecha Natzarti. I made a commitment to observe your mitzvot, and I stood by my commitment. A lot of people make commitments, but they don't carry it out. For whatever reason, it makes no difference. He carried it out. He committed himself to it. And he sees the positive consequences of those actions. He's not attributing any of his successes to himself. It's all from Shammai. He says, Zot hayta li. from Hashem. Whatever I have, I tell it because I observe the Torah mitzvot. A lot of people misunderstand. They think that they're geniuses, that they were able to turn over some investment and make so much money. They don't realize it's a mazal, or it could be something that is not so good either. People think wealth is always good. Sometimes wealth is to someone's detriment. As a result of him making all this money, this will make him fall. Or he will get hurt. People will be jealous of him. We should never always think or assume that wealth is a blessing. As Kohelet says, Solomon says, Yesh osher hashamur leba'alav lera'ato. There's sometimes wealth that is reserved for certain people, lera'ato, to his detriment. It's a curse, not a blessing sometimes. But here David HaMelech says, with what he always aspired, with what he had asked and prayed for, he got. But he attributes it to Hashem. He attributes it to his observance of the mitzvot. It was in that merit that he was able to retain all of it. Next, verse 57. Chelki Adonai amarti lishmor devarecha. Hashem is my portion, Chelki, and I pledge to keep your words. Very, very powerful. He's a king. Most kings are interested in amassing wealth, amassing fortune, conquering lands. David HaMelech says to himself and to us, Chelki, you want to know what I want to have? My chelik, my part? Hashem. That's all I'm interested in. Amarti lishmor devarecha. I pledge, therefore, to keep your words. This is what interests me the most. As we will see towards the end, he didn't care about all the gold and silver. He realized what's really important to life. How does he determine that? Because he realized, though, that those people that amassed a lot of wealth didn't take it with them. You open up their graves, you won't see anything there. And if they did, there's grave robbers that will dig it up and take it eventually. If not the archaeologists. You don't take it with you. What good is all that wealth, all that money? To have all these buildings. Of course you're entitled to make a living, but is that the goal? He says, you want to know what Chelki was? Chelki is Hashem. I want to be close to Him. I feel so good being close to Him. In this world, of course, and in the world to come. Yes, this life is full of pleasures, a lot of pleasures. Those pleasures can cause many, many people to get carried away. More and more and more and more. David HaMelech reminds us, Chelki, you want to know what my chelik was, my part? Hashem. Pasuk Nun Chet 58. We're now in the middle of the letter Het. Chiliti fanecha b'cholev choneni kimratecha. I pleaded before you with all my heart, have compassion upon me according to your word. So, what is he saying here with Chiliti? I pleaded with you. He's adding the words b'chol lev, with all his heart. Hashem, as a result of me praying with all my heart, pleading, in other words, praying, I'm hoping that you will have compassion on me, choneni, kimratecha, as you have promised, as you have said. The lesson here is very clear. He pleaded, he asked with all his heart. The more we do things with all our heart, the more kavanah, the more intent there is in the prayer, the more powerful, the more effective it will be. He's therefore expecting, not that he's demanding, he's hopefully expecting that these prayers will be answered. But still he uses the word choneni. Choneni means compassion. In other words, have compassion on me according to your word that you promised. A lot of people sometimes don't have enough merits, or there's accusations against them for whatever reason. They did something in the past. They don't have a clean record. You know, somebody wants to get a job right now, or he even wants life insurance, whatever. There's all kinds of policies, life insurance or jobs, that they will look into your past record. You may not get the job, you may not get the policy because of something that happened in your past. In other words, that you broke the law, even though it was a misdemeanor. For a certain amount of years, it's in the records. So you need somebody to be compassionate and say, okay, I realize you made a mistake. You were a young man, you didn't realize, you didn't know better. So David HaMelech is not taking any chance. He's not so confident. He knows he did the right thing. At least Hashem, at least you know that my prayer was pure. It was with all my heart. And that's important. It's important for us to know that if it's done with all one's heart, it can make a difference. Still, I ask for Hashem's compassion. Another important lesson perhaps we can learn from this, when he says, Chiliti fanecha, he's saying, I did my part. Hashem wants us to make a hishtadlut, as it's called in Farsi, a harikat. Make the effort, initiate, and Hashem will help. I initiated, the Rebbe says, I pleaded with you, and I did so with all my heart. Therefore I hope that my words will be well received. Pasuk Nun Tet, Hishavti derachai vashiva raglai el edotecha. I contemplated my ways. Hishavti means to calculate, or to contemplate, to examine, I guess you could also say. Vashiva raglai el edotecha. And return my feet to your testimonies. This is very, very important. Chishafti, contemplate, calculate. Rabbis tell us, advise us, you want to succeed in life, there's no way to anticipate everything. There's no way for us to know whether our actions will succeed or not, but at least do it right. Calculate, evaluate. What are you about to gain and what are you about to lose? Especially when you're in doubt. You're about to do something that is questionable. Maybe it's not right, maybe it's not proper, maybe it's not kosher, maybe it's dishonest. Calculate, schar avera keneged hefseda. What am I going to get from committing this sin? What am I going to lose? I have a lot to lose. Oh, maybe it doesn't pay. For a few minutes of enjoyment, this is going to be expensive. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that for certain things that they do in this lifetime, a few minutes of enjoyment, they get sick from some disease as a result of committing something that's not proper, not right. And this affects them for the rest of their life. Was it really worth it? They regret it, of course, later on. Schar avera keneged hefseda, and the other way around too, schar mitzvah. I have a chance, an opportunity to observe, fulfill this mitzvah. What am I going to gain and what am I going to lose if I don't do it? Poor man who needs some charity. And you have the money. You know what you're going to gain if you help him? You have any idea? A lot of people don't realize it. They simply forget. They say, come back tomorrow. Tomorrow he may not come back. Or you may not be there tomorrow. So don't push it off. We're going to talk about that soon too. It's not a good idea to delay a mitzvah. So David HaMelech here says, Chishafti derachai. I was that type of a person. Don't think I acted in an impulsive way. I wasn't a robot. I actually chishafti. I actually thought out things. I had doubts. I had issues to deal with. But I was very calculating in my ways. I didn't want to make a mistake. And I came to the conclusion, I'm always better off Vashiva raglai ledotecha. That I should return my feet to your testimonies. In other words, I should stay close to the mitzvot and not veer off. I realize that this is the best direction for me. Anything that tries to take me away from that is probably not a good idea. I'll give you a small example. Edotecha, your statutes, your testimonies. Torah, a shiur, a class. Somebody has an option, whether to come to a class tonight or to have a turkey dinner. Even though I know it's tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow, right? What should he do? Turkey? There's no question. Go to the mitzvah, go to the Torah, go to the Edotecha. What's the question? Can you compare? Of course, after the Torah, if you can still make it on time or have a little bit of that dinner, go ahead, fine. Nothing wrong with that. To cancel a whole Torah class because of that? How could you even think of doing that? Only because you did not do chishafta, you did not calculate. You did not calculate properly. How could you give up something like this? Is the biggest investment. So much reward for every minute of Torah. That is why a lot of people today who travel by train in the East Coast, subway, and they have all this time with them for the half an hour ride. They take the Tehilim with them. They take some Gemara. They take some book. Learn Torah. You're traveling anyway. What are you going to do now? What do you think a lot of people do instead? They look at some movie in their iPhone. Movie? What is that going to give you? A few minutes of enjoyment? You know what you can accomplish in an hour with Torah? Every word that you say. But they don't know. But it's not only that they don't know. Even if they know, some of people do not calculate. That's what David Amelech is saying. It's important to calculate. And whenever I did, it always took me el edotecha. It reminded me that this is more important. The statutes, the testimonies of Hashem. Pasuk Samach. Before we begin with Samach 60, David Amelech did have, by the way, despite his emunah, questions about why he was undergoing the suffering, why he was in pain, why he was being ridiculed, why did he have to go through this? Even though he knew it's a challenge, but not always did he realize what was going on. The Chishavti, when he calculated, also applies to that. That many times he thought it over and says, I think this is coming to me because maybe I didn't learn enough Torah. The rabbis tell us that when a person does not learn enough Torah, and he does have the time, then they keep him busy with other things. And those other things not only take his time, but they are also a form of an atonement for not having observed the mitzvot or not learned enough Torah. Samach, verse 60, talks about not pushing off, doing things immediately. I heard and did not delay to keep your commandments. Yeah, definitely. We saw it with Abraham Avinu now in the parasha of the Torah. He was very diligent, he was quick, he realized that things have to be done right away, otherwise so many things can distract you and cool you off. It happens to all of us. We sometimes are in the mood, and 10 minutes later, the weather changes. Talk about the weather of the mood. You were in excited mood, and now you're not anymore. So, when you're excited, do it. When you have the opportunity to do a mitzvah, don't push it off. It says, that's what I did. Chashti. Chashti means I hurried. I did not delay it, did not push it off. Yishmor mitzvotem, we're talking about after all the mitzvot. This may be the last time you have the opportunity to do something. If you don't do it now, it's not going to happen. I'll give an example of what it means last time. People think, okay, I can do it tomorrow, I can do it. There's a mitzvah that really, you only have a few days to do it. You know which one that is? Birkat HaLevana, which God willing we'll be doing next week sometime. The moon, the new moon. Well, if you live in some cities where the weather is not always that great, it's very cloudy, it's tough. If you have no rain, no clouds, then it's easy, relatively. But sometimes, even in those cities that don't have too much rain, in the winter it's cloudy. And if you just push it off to another day, I say I have a few more days, I can do it till the middle of the month almost. It may happen that at the last day, you can't do it anymore. It's cloudy, now what are you going to do? So there was one rabbi who took a helicopter and went above the clouds. Not all of us have the means to take a helicopter. But I had this situation several times. It happened. Several times it happened that we were running out of time. And if I would wait and take a chance, I would lose it. It's a beautiful mitzvah. Now, if you wake up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes at that hour of the night, it clears up. The problem is you may not see the moon from where you are. So what did I do one day? I knew that the further east I went, closer to the desert, I had a better chance to see the moon. I wasn't seeing the moon here. Closer here to the ocean. So I remember, because I once went very, very far in the direction of Palm Springs, I remember that it became clearer and clearer, depending where. So it took me, that ride took me all the way to West Covina. By the time I reached West Covina, I stopped off at a gas station to say Birkat HaLevana. I was able to, but I had to travel. I couldn't do it if I couldn't wait from LA. It happened again a second time. West Covina was cloudy too. Right outside Palm Springs, I stopped on the freeway. On the freeway, I stopped. I didn't want to take a chance. on the freeway, on the shoulder. I stopped, Birkat HaLevana, right outside the city of Palm Springs. Then it happened the third time to me. This time I checked Google Maps. You can check to see the weather, the cloud cover. So I had that tool and I said, wow, all over Southern California it's cloudy. No matter how far I go, I won't be able to do it. Now what do? I got on a plane and I went to Phoenix. And at the airport in Phoenix, on the roof, I went up to, where you can see everything. That's where I did Birkat HaLevana. And don't think I was able to do it right away. I had to wait till there was still a few clouds there. Somebody was looking at me thinking, what am I doing there? Maybe he's a terrorist. I was just waiting for my flight back, my return flight. Yeah, as soon as I finished, within an hour or so, I took my return flight to Los Angeles. Of course, it requires some self-sacrifice there, but so what? It's a beautiful mitzvah. It's a mitzvah that if you don't do it, you lost it. So how could you not do it if it's feasible? It's feasible. I didn't have to travel too far. I didn't have to travel to the moon. Right? Don't push it off. We're talking about Lishmor Mitzvotecha after all. Your life depends on this. Pasuk Samach Aleph, 61. I'm reminded also, Pirkei Avot we say, Hayom Katzar v'melacha merubah, if you recall. Life is short, the day is short, and there's so much work to do. Because we have so many commitments, so many things to do, if we don't pay attention to the mitzvot, some of the mitzvot will just disappear. In other words, and not be around when we turn around to see where they are. They just disappeared. A Yom Katzar day is short. Don't wait thinking that you'll have that opportunity later on as well. Rabbis also tell us, Al tomar necheshe paneh shnei. Oh, when I'll have the time when I retire, I'm going to learn. Who says you'll ever retire? You know how many people died after they retired? They thought that they had all these major plans. Right after they retired, within a year or two, they died. They were no longer active. We can't make such plans. Something which is right, do it right away. 61. Chevlei reshaim iveduni toratecha lo shachachti. Bands of wicked men. Chevlei reshaim. Bands, groups of evil men plundered me. According to one translation, they want to say that iveduni, the word iveduni is to plunder, to rob him, to hurt him, to take what was his. I don't like that translation so much. I would prefer the translation of the Aramaic here, which means they ganged up on me. It makes more sense to me. But either way, he was surrounded, he was persecuted, he was troubled by gangs of Reshaim, of wicked people. Toratecha lo shachachti. Nonetheless, I did not forget your Torah. So, this is another challenge that he had to face from time to time. Not ordinary people, Reshaim, clearly wicked people were after him. This was not an excuse. What did we begin to say? We're talking about many types of excuses that people can use as an excuse. I couldn't do it. They just didn't let me. They made fun of me. It's not an excuse. Somebody might say upstairs, God, I was so rich. I just didn't have the time. You made me rich. And God will show you a lot of people that were a lot richer than him who didn't make time for Torah. Some will say, God, you made me poor. I was so poor. I just had to work hard for a living to bring food on the table. That's not an excuse either. I'm going to show you a lot of poor people in our history that still devoted time to Torah. It's not an excuse. So he says, don't think this is an excuse. Gangs of wicked people trying to give me a hard time. They ganged up on him. They tried to hurt him, bother him. Toratecha lo shachachti. It didn't impress me. See, there's a lot of peer pressure here. Be like us. Be part of the gang. And what did we say earlier? A lot of people fall for it. They can't take it. I didn't fall for it. I didn't forget about your Torah. All right, next pasuk. Samach Bet 62. Chatzot laila akum leodot lachem mishpetei tzidkecha. Similar to what we said before about the nighttime. At midnight, I arise to thank you for your righteous judgments. He gets up at midnight. What's so special about midnight? Well, anybody who's learned Kabbalah, anybody who knows about Tikkun Chatzot, anybody knows about the special prayers that are said then, that is a very propitious time. That is a time when there's mourning for the destruction of the temple, for the Shekhinah. It's a very important part of the night. Kabbalistically, we won't get into that too much right now. All I will point out, however, is that in the Zohar, it does talk about the night in the following way. When Hashem sees that the Jew is learning Torah at night, it makes Hashem proud of him. Why? Because he tells all the angels, look, everybody else is sleeping, everybody else is playing around, everybody else is just wasting their time somewhere at night, and he's sitting down and learning. So because it is not as common for people to learn at night, to be doing something like that, it stands out in the upper worlds. It makes a very, very powerful impression. So besides the importance of Chatzot Alai being a propitious time, it also is significant because, look, this is what David was doing of all people. He was so busy, and he made an effort to get up and to pray at that time of the night. As he says later on, he got up, leodot lach, al mishpatei tzidkecha, I got up to thank you for your righteous judgments. What judgments? Well, obviously everything that was happening to him. He was grateful, realizing that it was all for his good, all for his benefit. He didn't complain. All right, next verse, Samach Gimel 63. Chaver ani lechol asher yiraucha uleshomrei pikudecha. I am a friend to all who fear you and to those who keep your precepts. This is easy. Tell me who your friend is, I'll tell you who you are. Hashem, I stick around only with good people. Those are the ones who are careful with the negative commandments as well as with the positive commandments. If you look at the verse, he's talking about ayireucha, those who fear you. That's the negative commandments. They're careful not to stumble with that which is wrong. Uleshomrei pikudecha, those that observe your mitzvot, that is the positive commandments. You know, some people just are careful with the negative, but the positive, they're not so excited, they're not interested. He was befriending people who were careful in the two areas. These were his friends. Chaver ani. Obviously, it's very possible for somebody to choose the wrong friend. Very possible. Because either he's his business partner, a neighbor, or whatever, even a relative. The rabbis tell us very, very clearly in Pirkei Avot, be very, very careful who your friends are because they have a tremendous influence over you. Your surroundings, your teachers, your classmates, friends. Friends can be a powerful influence. So I make sure to befriend the right people. All right, next verse. This is the last verse with the letter Het. Samach Dalet 64. Chazdecha Adonai Male'a Haaretz Chukecha Lamedeni. Your kindness, Hashem, fills the earth. Teach me your statutes. Your kindness fills the earth. Well, Hashem is kind. The whole creation is an act of love, kindness. But he says, Male'a Haaretz. If you look everywhere, you have to look, you have to analyze. You will see all the chesed that there is in the world. All the chesed that Hashem does in the world. We wish that people would do chesed too. But he says, look at the world and you will notice the chesed that Hashem does. Avraham Avinu noticed it too. And that is why he taught this. He taught people this is the most important thing for God, that you are kind to each other. He wants us to emulate him. The way he is kind, he wants you to be kind. So I noticed that your kindness fills the land, the earth. Teach me your statutes. Well, what does teaching your statutes have to do with kindness? Well, it means how the things that happen in the world are an act of kindness from Hashem, because he sees a lot of things happening. And he realizes that Hashem is kind, but he doesn't understand how could this be kind when he sees death of somebody who is very young, leaving behind a widow and orphans. What's so kind about that? See what I mean? That is what he's asking for. Moshe Rabbeinu asked for the same thing. Odieni na derachecha. Please teach me, show me your ways. I want to understand your pikudecha. I want to understand your chukecha, your mitzvot, your statutes, your testimonies, because all of this has to do with some testimonies, some statutes, some law, some divine law. It's not only about the mitzvot of the Torah. We're talking about rules that Hashem has for how to run this world. Teach me. I see that it's all about kindness, but I'd like to see how. 65, Pasuk Samach Hey. Now we're beginning with the letter Tet. Tuv tam vadat lamedeni ki b'mitzvotecha imanti. 66. Teach me the goodness and wisdom of the Torah's reasons, for I believe in your commandments. This is similar to what we just said. He wants to have an understanding. He wants to have some sort of understanding of why is this mitzvah a mitzvah? Why did Hashem instruct us to do this? A lot of them we don't understand. They're chukim. They're decrees from Hashem. But look, he uses the word tuv here. Teach me the goodness and the wisdom in everything that you asked us to do. I know it's good, but I don't see. I do believe. A lot of people first want to understand before they fulfill. Fulfill the mitzvah. This is a divine law, even though you will never understand the reason for it. You take medication from the doctor even though you don't understand what it's all about. Even the doctor himself doesn't know what he scribbled. All he knows is that this is supposed to help you. But you don't ask questions, you don't second guess the doctor. So why are you doing it? Because he has a white gown and he has a diploma and he barely passed when he was in college? You trust him? You don't trust this? Your forefathers gave their life for this. But nonetheless, you can still ask Hashem for direction. You can still ask Him to explain to you. I want to see how good this is. Show me that this is good and this is kind. Teach it to me. There's wisdom here. I'd love to learn. So David HaMelech is telling us here that this is something that we should all strive for. Strive to understand as best as we can. Hashem may not speak to us directly, but He can enlighten us. But you have to ask. You have to pray for it. This is something worth asking for. This is something spiritual. People don't realize that when they ask for something physical, they may not get it right away. Hashem says, no, your parnasah is based on your mazah. You're not going to make more than $65,000 a year. That's it. At least this year. If you ask for spiritual request, Hashem, help me perform the mitzvah. Help me find a marriage partner. These are spiritual. Hashem wants you to have those. He wants you to be able to do the mitzvah. He wants you to have a good teacher. He wants you to be married. Ask. Make your best efforts. Don't be too picky, of course, and don't do anything that is criminal in nature against the Torah that will bring upon you an accusation and ruin your chances of getting what you're asking of me. So as long as you do everything right, there's no reason to suspect that Hashem is not listening. Why He still, nonetheless, did not give you what you needed, only He knows. But we have to try. If we try, you'd be surprised. A miracle can happen. Keheref ayin. In a blink of an eye. There's incredible miraculous stories that prove this. We don't have the time. We can be here days and days and days sharing miraculous stories of people who prayed and saw miracles. So David HaMelech wants to see the wisdom. He wants to be taught the goodness of the Torah. Pasuk Samach Zayin 67. Terem e'nei ani shogeg v'atayim ratcha shamarti. 67. Before I afflicted myself, I would blunder. He made mistakes. But now I observe your word. So he admits that at one time he did blunder. At one time he did make mistakes. People have to realize that it's only human to make mistakes. So he understands that perhaps some of what he underwent, some of the affliction, is due to that he was not careful enough perhaps, that he made mistakes, but now I do keep everything. Now I know better. Once upon a time I didn't know better, but Hashem accepts our teshuvah. He says, it's okay, I understand, you didn't know better. At least you've tried the next time around to do it better. Don't repeat the same mistakes. Okay, I think we can go to the next verse. Tov atah umetiv lamedeni chukecha, that's Samachet 68. You are good and benevolent, teach me your statutes. This is also something very similar to what we just said before, but there's a difference here. He says, Tov atah umetiv. You are good and benevolent. Well, the English translation of benevolent, I'm not sure would do justice to this pasuk. Because Tov means you are good, But mitiv, more than benevolent, you actually do good. What's the difference? You're good to those that ask of you something. And mitiv even to those who don't ask. Hashem is not only going to be good to those who ask of him a favor, to those who pray to him. Hashem is benevolent even to those who don't ask, who may need something. But if you look at the words, the end of the pasuk, he reminds us, you know when Hashem is for sure good, or for sure will listen to your prayer? When you ask for something like Lamedeni Chukecha, it's something spiritual in nature. Teach me your statutes. I want to understand your ways. I want to understand the mitzvot. That's something Hashem will help you for sure. If you ask for things that are more mundane, who's to say that you deserve it? Maybe Hashem won't want to give it to you. Maybe it's not good for you. There's a story with the Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim was once asked, why doesn't God answer my prayers? And the Chafetz Chaim says, we all have general prayers in the Siddur for refuah, to be healed. We have prayers for parnasah, livelihood. There's one prayer where it begins with the words Shema Kolenu. Listen to our voice. It's a general prayer where you can ask anything you want, including marriage partner. However, be careful. Don't just ask for something specific because you never know if that's good for you. Ask Hashem, you know what I need. Please give me what I need. That's better. For the following reason, he gives a mashal as follows. There was once a father that told the grocery man, whenever my son comes home from school on his way home, give him some candies and I'll pay you for it later. A couple weeks later, the son got a very bad stomachache. He had a lot of candies. And on that day, the grocer came to collect the money that he was owed. So he tells the grocer, not only did you give my son a stomachache, you also asked me for money, but you told me to give him candy, and then you would pay me. Did I tell you to give him as much as he wants? You must have given him a lot of candies. What do you expect? You knew that this would hurt him. It's not right of you. Now, if they would go to court, the father has a good case. He should have been smarter than that, not to give the kid as much as he wants. Chafetz Chaim says, when we head upstairs and we realize that what we asked for hurt us, harmed us in our life, we can ask God, why did you give it to us when you knew this would hurt us? And if, imagine, so to say, if we were to take God to court, so to say, we have a good case. Hashem doesn't want us to do that. He realizes that this is not right. So he's not going to give us usually something which is not right for us. It's always better, you're safer asking for something general. I want to marry her. She may turn out to be a witch, you know that? She's going to give you a hard time. Are you sure you want it? Yes, I'm infatuated. Yes, infatuated is not healthy. You don't realize that sometimes. Be careful. Hashem, give it to me if she's the right one. If not, please protect me from the wrong ones. That's better. Pasuk Samachet 69. Tafalu alai sheker zedim ani bechol lev etzor pikudecha. The wicked have smeared me with lies, and I kept your precepts with all my heart. So even though people were accusing me of all kinds of lies, people were saying bad things about me, this did not stop me. It's another example of all kinds of situations where people fear and don't know what to do. Maybe they need to comply in order to get people off their back. And here David HaMelech says, no, even though they spoke bad about me, they said lies, that did not dissuade me in any way. I still observed your mitzvot. This happened throughout our history. All kinds of people plotted against us, accused us, said lies. Blood libels, the biggest lie of all, didn't stop us. Yes, we gave our life for it, regardless, despite the fact. So don't let that get in the way if people say lies, just because they're lying and you're trying to defend yourself. He observed the mitzvot nonetheless. 70, their hearts grew thick as fat, but as for me, your Torah was my delight. They're ignorant. Fat means that they don't understand, they're completely ignorant. They fill their bellies with food, that's all they care about. And they became fat, not spiritual, very physical. And as a result of that, they have no clue, no understanding of what is right and what is wrong. But for me, the Torah Shiyashati, it was my delight. They didn't understand what's so beautiful, what's so special about Torah. What's this? This is antiquated. This belongs in a museum. No. This is a life. A life depends on this. Do you know that? If you don't learn, you will never know that. Therefore, I took delight in it because I knew how special it was. But they were tafash kachelelim. They had all this fat in their head and in their stomach. Obviously, they're not going to know better. If you're into food, that's all you're going to care about. He was not into that. He was into the Torah. He realized how much more special it is. Ayin Aleph. Tov li ki unetit leman elmad chukecha. It is for my good that I was afflicted so that I might learn your statutes. He now realizes that all the affliction was for some good. It served some purpose. Rabbis tell us that Izaru b'bnei aniyim ki mi'emtet Torah. Be very careful with the poor, those who are afflicted, because leaders and giants of Torah will come out from them. Those who are afflicted, you never know. A lot of good souls can come out from them. And also they tell us those who work hard in understanding the Torah, they will be able to retain the Torah better. They will succeed in understanding it. They will succeed in retaining it because they worked so hard. They suffered in the learning of the Torah. So Tov li kiunet, it's a good thing that I was afflicted, whether it's the afflictions that he received as an atonement or whether it's the hardships that he had in learning Torah, because he was able to retain it a lot better because he worked so hard. Tov li Torah picha me'alfei zahav v'chesaf, it's the last verse 72, that the Torah of your mouth is better for me than thousands of gold and silver. The most precious thing in the world is the Torah. There was one rabbi, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, on his way he was approached by this gentleman. Rabbi, can you come to our town? We're going to give you a large salary of millions of dollars in precious gems and stones. Please join us. He says, you can give me all the money in the world. I will only go to a place of Torah. Wait a minute, how did he know that that place did not have any Torah? You know what the answer is? When a person speaks only about money, you can rest assured there's no Torah. This is what he's trying to impress him with a big salary. I'll give all the money in the world away. I don't care for that. As we said earlier, you don't take it with you. What are you going to take with you? Your Torah and all your good deeds.